where what we have with sensation seems to be based on probability. Not a matter of certainty, but simply of probability. If, for instance, we want to think of some, take it back, some general concept, some generalization, some general concept, then obviously any empirical generalization is going to be limited to probability tied to how large the sample that we've experienced. So you can have probability there. And by the same token, he would think that causal arguments, inasmuch as the notion of causal power is at best a construct, causal arguments are at best probability arguments. And so that likewise leaves you with a lesser degree of knowledge. So the answer essentially is this. If it's not something you know immediately, intuitively, if it's not something that can be demonstrated from what is known immediately, then the only way you know that something is the way you think it is on the basis of experience. Probabilities are the best we have. Okay. And I think that's characteristic of this whole empiricist tradition, that if you want to know anything beyond present experience, you have to go with probability. Now, the question he's not asking is about the logical basis of probability. You see, because probability assumes the uniformity of nature. And it remains for David Hume to question the logical basis of probability. You see. He really does a thorough job. Okay.
On demonstration, can you give an example of what he would say you could prove by demonstration?
Mm-hmm. Mathematical theorems. That's the classic example, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, and he can't go much beyond that if he wants to be true to his empiricism. You see? Because if he's going to say you can know independently of sense experience things about the physical universe, he's not going to be an empiricist. Yeah. Dave?
Jumping back to the simple ideas for a second. So are the reflections of the sensations that we receive, or are they?
Reflections can be after images, memories of original sensations, or they can be simple ideas of our own mental activities, of thinking, doubting, hoping. Okay. So that the immediate sensation is one thing, simple idea of sensation. Your subsequent reflection on that is something different. Get that distinction? When we get to Hume, we'll see he adapts the terminology to make that distinction a little more clearly. For Hume, the immediate sensation is called an impression. And then an idea, that term, is used for your subsequent idea of the impression. But the immediate sensation is an impression. Okay. That language has other reasons for it, but it makes the distinction rather nicely. Okay, let me back up now to abstract ideas. Okay, abstract ideas, and here we get into the question of universals, because the term abstraction plainly is the Aristotelian and scholastic term for the way in which we gain universal concepts. And is, in effect, where does John Locke come out on theories of universals? Now, hark back to what we were doing last semester as we got into this period. And we observed that Bacon and Hobbes are both directly influenced by the Occamist nominalism and take nominalist positions. That's to say, all we can think is particulars. We don't even have words that stand for abstract ideas, because we don't even have abstract ideas. All we have is general ideas. And so both Bacon and Hobbes are nominalists. Now, in the case of Descartes, somewhat different. Descartes' not an empiricist on the source of our ideas. He's a rationalist. There are things we know independently of experiencing particulars. So Descartes is a conceptualist. We do have abstract ideas, not just empirical generalizations. Even though Descartes did not believe that there were real universals in the Platonic or Aristotelian sense. Descartes the conceptualist. Bacon and Hobbes are nominalists. John Locke also, I think, is a conceptualist. And it seems to be the influence of Descartes here. Because John Locke is going to be taking up a mind-body dualism like Descartes. We'll see this later on, but he agrees with Descartes. Descartes' cogito ergo sum argument, I think, therefore I exist, I'm a thinking thing, a mind, a soul, an immaterial entity. So he follows Descartes in that regard, even though he's an empiricist, as simple ideas of reflection are what lead him to that. And being a conceptualist, then, he's not going, take it back, having an immaterial mind, he's not going to be so tied to physical sensations as was Thomas Hobbes. And he thinks of the powers of the mind, the active powers of the mind that we're aware of in reflection. And one of these mental activities, mental powers we're aware of, is the power of abstraction. You see? And so what he's doing in the section on abstract ideas is talking about our ideas of reflection, of abstracting. You see. Now, with that in mind, turn to those two passages and take a look at them. The first one is on page 182. 182, where it's part of chapter 11 under the title of Discerning and Other Operations of the Mind, within which, talking about operations of the mind, yes, he talks about naming as one operation of the mind. At the very bottom of 181, when children have, by repeated sensations, got ideas fixed in their memories, they begin by degrees to learn the use of signs. That's how they learned names, words. Okay? And then the section on abstraction, the use of words being to stand as outward marks of internal ideas. Well, words are outward marks, physical signs, written or heard, seen or heard, words are outward signs of internal ideas, ideas taken from particular things. If every particular idea that we take in should have a distinct name, names would be endless. So to prevent this, the mind makes the particular ideas to become general ideas by considering them as separate from all existence and from the circumstances of existence, separate from time, place, or anything else. So this is called abstraction. You develop abstract general ideas, whereby ideas taken from particular beings become general representations with general names applicable to whatever exists, conformable to such abstract ideas. So we get general concepts carried by those names, those words. And these abstract ideas then are what he's talking about. And in the next paragraph, brutes abstract not, he makes the point that this is one of the main distinctions between humans and animals, that we have abstract ideas, we think abstractly, animals do not. They may have sense perception and so forth, but they don't think abstractly. Now that's the one passage. The other passage is on page 192, where in book 3 he's talking about general words again, repeats something of what he said earlier. Notice in the middle of the second column, the end of paragraph 8, a new idea is made, not by any new addition, but only, as before, by leaving out shape and other properties, other particular properties, retaining only a body with life, sense, spontaneous motion, comprehended under the name animal. How do you get the general idea of animal? By abstracting what is essential to all animals from the particular properties of every animal. You leave aside all the particular properties and think in abstraction just of what is essential to being an animal. That is to say, a body with life, sense, spontaneous motion. That's the essence of an animal. And on 192, then he goes on, top of the page, of the complex ideas signified by the names man and horse, leaving out particulars in which they differ, retaining only those wherein they agree. Those making a new complex idea, giving the name animal to it, one has a more general term. Leave out the idea of animal, sense and spontaneous motion, and remaining complex idea, so forth, becomes a more general one under the more comprehensive category too, vivens, living things. Notice how he's playing with the Aristotelian things. Humans are rational animals. What's an animal? Animals are living things. What's a living thing? You see the larger and larger universal categories. Until he gets to the end of that paragraph to conclude this whole mystery of genera